Good afternoon. This is a Divar Torah on Parshas Bereishis. It is the first Parsha now that we finished the Torah for another cycle on Sumkos Torah and the Sefer Devarim, Deuteronomy. We were now beginning with Sefer Bereishis, and the Parsha covers the entire history of humanity for the first 10 generations from Adam and Rishon and Chava, his wife, to the time of Noah, just before the Mabul, which will be the topic of the next week's Parsha. In any event, this is a Parsha one could literally speak about for weeks. It has many things both revealed and hidden in it. What I'd like to do is focus in this Devar Torah on the first verse, which says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. Now, which translates, in the beginning, of Hashem's creation, Hashem's creation of the heavens and the earth. Now, there's a number of questions that can be asked in this verse. In fact, the Vilna Gaon, Rav Eliyahu Vilna, asked a question on this and said that everything that's included in the Torah is also encompassed in Ma'aseh Bereishit, the 7 days of creation. And it's also that which encompasses the whole Torah is also encompassed by the first verse of the Torah, Bereishit, bara Elohim et hashamayim v'haaretz. Now, I want to ask a number of questions on this. First of all, is a connection between the 10 things which Hashem created the world in Ma'aseh Bereishit and the Seros B'Ribos, the 10 Commandments. And I'd like to give one aspect of that. What is the connection between the two here? Second question is, the pasuk itself is interesting. It says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. Now, the word et, or es, does not have a direct English translation or an English, it doesn't exist in English grammar. But usually et is, or es, is used to add something that is not visible in the pasuk in its plain, simple reading. And the question I'm going to have is, what is that? A third question is, was the world created really with one saying or 10 sayings? Because it says in the beginning of the Perek of Pirkei Avos, the ethics and wisdom of the fathers, the following: Ba'asra Imros Nivra Ha'olam V'ma Talmud Lomar Halo B'maimar Achad Yechol Lebriot et Ela Pra Min Haroshoyim Sha'avadim et Ha'olam Shebra B'mesra Maimros Notain Skarto to the Sadiqim Lebkadim et Olam Shenivra B'esem Maimros. So what that translates is to, it could have been all said with one, but was given by 10 to punish the Rishoyim, to punish the evildoers. To punish the evildoers who set out to destroy the world which Hashem created with 10 things. In other words, multiply the punishment and give schar, good positive things to the Sadiqim, who by their behavior, their actions, their learning, maintain and Kayam, that will establish and maintain it. So it seems there's a concept of one expression versus 10 again. And the question I want to discuss is, what is the significance of that? And finally, it uses the word Elohim. It's one of Hashem's name. Instead of the word Havaya, Yud K, Vav K. Now, the Or HaChaim HaKodesh, famous rabbi in the 1700s, who wrote an incredible commentary on Chumash by Books of Moses, and I'm going to build most of this Torah, base it on what the Or HaChaim does to answer these type of questions. Now, he has 22 commentaries on the first verse alone of the Chumash. Now, why 22 commentaries? He doesn't do that anywhere else, because Hashem created the universe, both our physical universe and the higher spiritual worlds, with the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Now, that can be understood on many levels, which will make an interesting share in itself for Devar Torah, but it's not the main purpose here. But anyway, it should be understood that everything is composed of those letters, which can be, again, understood on many levels. And as the Or HaChaim understands it, so the Or HaChaim gave 22 commentaries. Now, to show you one example, this is not by the Or HaChaim, this is by another commentary. One takes an example of how much deepness there is here, how much there is to understand. The word Evan, Aleph, base, Nun, Evan, stone. The first letter is taken from one of the names of Hashem, Adonut, the Aleph, and the Ben, base, Nun, is taken from Hashem's merciful name, the overall one, Yud K, Vav K. It's one way of spelling it. It depends how, if you take each letter in it and how you spell out the letters. One of them is Ben, which has the gematria of 52. And that so simple thing, what appears to be a simple thing like an Evan, has combinations of letters, one representing the Yud K, Vav K, the other one representing the Ephraim name Hanut. It's not as it's pronounced. It's not as it's pronounced as it's spelled, because these names are only supposed to be used in prayer and not even in giving a share with the Torah like this. Now, that being the case, the Or HaChaim comes up with some very interesting and discussion of these type of questions, and he explains why does he use that name? Because it's coming to teach us something very important. That Hashem said and created everything with his first statement. In this Bereishit, Hashem had came out of Shemayim Ba'aretz, everything was created simultaneously and at the same time. And on one level, that's saying that the whole prototype universe was there from the beginning, even though it took over the next 7 days to put it in its final form, but everything existed from the beginning. But it's saying something far more fundamental and even deeper, which is that when Hashem said it, he speaks in a way that we're not capable of. Because even though he said the 10 things together, they were not uttered one after the other like a human. When I quoted a word of the pasuk, I have to say word by word like any other human being. Hashem said all of them at the same time in one expression, but there was no before and there was no after. And just like we have to say pronounce the letters one by one to make up a word in Hebrew or any language for that matter, here that was not the case. And they all occurred at the same time. There was no before, there was no after. And that's one aspect. And therefore, what happened, as I said, after the next 6 days was to finish, was the completion of all that. Now, that being the case, and also encompassed in there, is not only the physical creation, it also encompasses being implied in the next that in the next few verses is the whole history of humanity from Adam Rishon up. Again, that in itself is a Devar Torah, but there's far more embracing in here. Now, all of these statements, therefore, came at once. As he said, the kol shel kol, that everything came in at one time. Now, the word et, so the question, another question which he answers within this pasuk, Yerachim, is what was created first, the heavens or the earth? And even before that, there are 4 primal elements, the spiritual earth, air, fire, and water, which everything is in everything, both physical and spiritual. And if that's the case, then what came first? And again, we have the concept with these 10 utterances, and this is also in the first verse, that, and this is the word et, that it said, Et Hashemayim B'Haaretz is to teach us, according to the Yochaim, that everything was created simultaneously. There was no before and after. And on top of that, well, what about the basic building blocks? Normally, when you're going to put together a house, you have make the bricks or whatever construction material you're working with, then put it up into a structure. Here, the Yochaim here is saying something even more fundamental, that even the basic building blocks, that's why we're used to words et, which would not necessarily tell us that all of the 4 basic building blocks and the heaven and earth were all created at the same time. Again, no before and after. And I would add this because we're going to see as we go through other parshas that Hashem is above all of that. That's particularly illustrated when we get to the 10th plague in Parashat Shmos, when I'll be speaking about that, more about that concept in Sefer Shmos, and Parshas Bo, when this is the killing of the firstborn Egyptians, and the Jewish people liberated from Mitzrayim, Egypt. So that also explains why we, Pirkei Avos, it said it could have been created with one expression. In a very real sense, it was. But the reason the Shem did all the other add-ons with the other 9 expressions was, as explained, to punish the Rishonim who tried to destroy the world 10 times over, punish them 10 times, tenfold, and the Tzaddikim that maintain this world to reward them 10 times over. And that also explains another reason why the term Elohim is used here. Of course, Elohim illustrates Hashem's glory, Hashem's power, Hashem's power and his majesty and his might. That name of him, his Gevurah, his judgment, his strict justice, also, all of that is included in that name, but it's also to indicate Hashem's immense greatness, strength, and power, that he was able to create everything simultaneously. And as we are going into the year, and we're now coming into winter after all the Yontifs, and hopefully there will be a year of peace. This year will be a year of peace after the last 2 years. That then when the winter, going into fall and winter, which is a very good time to explore this, and as going through the parshas, we should all gather more knowledge and explanations. And I'd like to wish everybody a good Shabbos and a Shabbat Shalom.